Lights, camera, dissect. Welcome back to Midnight Reel Reviews.
On her first day at work, Annie uncovered a big secret when she discovered a letter from 50 years ago hidden inside the wishing wall. Little did she know, this letter would change her life forever. In Verona, Italy, a legend says touching Juliet's statue grants true love. But behind the myth lies a deeper story. Letters left on the wishing wall seeking Juliet's advice are secretly answered by women called Juliet's secretaries. Annie, fascinated by the legend, learned that the Juliet's secretaries collect and respond to letters, each bringing unique skills to resolve disputes and comfort heartbreak. Inspired, she joined the team. On her first day, she found a letter from Claire, an American girl torn between her family's opposition and her love for an Italian boy. Claire sought Juliet's guidance for her heartbreak. Believing in their love, Annie wrote back, pouring her emotions into the reply. Days later, Claire's grandson appeared, deeply moved by Annie's letter. When he inquired about its author, Annie openly admitted it was her. This heartfelt connection proved that even a letter sealed for decades could bridge generations and transform lives. But Jack wasn't there to thank Annie. Instead, he accused her of meddling in affairs that weren't her business. Jack worried that if they couldn't find the person in the end, his grandmother's disappointment would only deepen. Faced with Jack's accusations, Annie was at a loss for words. But she understood that everything had started because of her decision, and she had to take responsibility for it. Determined, she joined Jack and eventually arrived at Juliet's house, where they met Claire, now in her 70s. But Jack wasn't there to thank Annie. Instead, he accused her of meddling in affairs that weren't her business. Jack worried that if they couldn't find the person in the end, his grandmother's disappointment would only deepen. Faced with Jack's accusations, Annie was at a loss for words. But she understood that everything had started because of her decision, and she had to take responsibility for it. Determined, she joined Jack and eventually arrived at Juliet's house, where they met Claire, now in her 70s. As night fell, the city was bathed in romance. Claire clutched the engagement ring Lorenzo had given her, her eyes filled with emotion. She softly recalled their memories, tinged with sorrow. Time had weathered them, but they remained vivid in her mind. The regrets of the past pressed heavily on her. Standing in the city again, Claire decided to right the wrongs. With conviction, she vowed that the next day she would find Lorenzo, the man still in her heart. Deeply moved by her determination, Annie decided to join this journey of love, witness this romance spanning half a century, and document it in a book. The next day, the group set out with hope to find Lorenzo. Their first stop was an old apartment building in the suburbs. An elderly man, walking with difficulty, slowly emerged. One glance was enough for Claire. It wasn't the Lorenzo she longed for. Though slightly disappointed, her resolve remained unshaken. Meanwhile, Annie searched online and was surprised to discover that in the area, there were as many as 74 people named Lorenzo. Luckily, the Lorenzo they sought lived in the countryside. With this clue, Annie narrowed the search, and the three continued their journey. Along the way, they met a playful Lorenzo who was deeply focused on a game of chess. At the docks, they encountered another lively Lorenzo, but he was far from what they had hoped. Then they arrived at a grand castle where an unexpected surprise awaited. As the sunset painted the sky, their first day of searching came to an end. Back at the hotel, Claire sought to ease the tension between Jack and Annie. She encouraged Jack to share his experiences working on charity cases at his law firm. Unexpectedly, Annie was deeply moved. She never imagined that Jack, who she thought so poorly of, would be committed to such a noble cause. When they were about to part, Jack took the initiative to apologize to Annie. On his way back to his room, Jack opened up to her, confessing that his previous actions were not out of malice, but rather out of a deep fear of disappointing his grandmother. On the second day of the search, they visited a peaceful nursing home. Claire, filled with hope, gently introduced herself to an elderly man. But when he slowly removed his sunglasses, his eyes didn't awaken any memories in Claire's heart. Another possibility was ruled out, and disappointment washed over her. Sensing Claire's heavy heart, Annie picked up on her emotions. It was still a warm, happy home. This deep yearning resonated within Jack's heart, helping him understand Annie's inner hopes and desires. In the tranquil night, a silent understanding between them created a subtle, ambiguous atmosphere. The two couldn't help but kiss. But moments later, Annie suddenly realized something and quickly left. Claire witnessed the scene. To help them grow closer, Claire offered Annie the front seat. Instantly, the car was filled with an awkward tension. However, as they drove into a vineyard, Claire's expression suddenly turned tense and urgent. He eagerly motioned for Jack to stop, drawn to a young man working in the fields. The figure seemed to radiate the essence of the young Lorenzo. Upon Annie's inquiry, they learned that the young man's grandfather was the Lorenzo they had been searching for. Annie and Jack were overjoyed, filled with excitement and hope, but Claire hesitated, as time had changed his appearance. Claire recognized the young man from her past, and in that moment, 50 years of lost love were reunited. A heartfelt embrace dissolved decades of regret as Lorenzo shared his emotions. The bond they had forged so long ago was reignited, carrying the weight of a lifetime of longing. Their reunion felt profound, as though the years of waiting and missed opportunities had all led to this meaningful moment, proving that true love endures despite the passage of time. However, Annie seemed a bit saddened. Tears welled up in her eyes as she quietly left the scene. After Jack repeatedly asked, Annie finally confessed that she was already engaged. She felt helpless, knowing their time together was just a brief, fleeting romance. Now she had to say goodbye to this beautiful story and return to her normal life. Though there was some regret, she knew she had to let go. As Annie's car slowly drove away, Jack's heart was in turmoil, filled with mixed emotions. His grandmother's support for pursuing true love sparked hope in Jack. He chased Annie to her building, but as he approached, her fiancé appeared. Their warmth left Jack feeling lost. Realizing love's value, but the need for restraint, Jack turned to leave. Just then, Annie's fiancé's phone rang, disrupting their moment. Disappointment filled Jack's heart as he stood there, torn between staying and walking away, knowing some emotions are better left unspoken. Annie unknowingly glanced at Jack's car as it drove away, watching his retreating figure. Anne felt a swirl of emotions as fate continued to weave its thread. In New York, she submitted her true story to her boss, who was curious about the ending, though he hadn't contacted her due to his own emotional struggles. Despite the unanswered ending, Anne achieved her dream of becoming a writer. She rushed to tell her fiancé, but his cold response left her feeling unseen. Their trip to Juliet's house, meant to be a pre-wedding getaway, revealed their growing distance as he attended a wine auction and dismissed her concerns. Anne's turning point came when she received an invitation to Claire's wedding along with a letter sealed for decades. Reading the letter, Anne was inspired by an elderly couple's love and realized she couldn't stay with a man who didn't value love. She broke up with her fiancé, who offered excuses, deepening Anne's frustration. She left for Italy with confidence, determined to attend Claire's wedding, free from emotional baggage. However, a woman's unexpected appearance at the wedding shattered her expectations. Anne's unease grew as she witnessed Jack with the woman, but Claire's reading of Juliet's reply encouraged Anne to find her own path in life, free from turmoil. Jack quickly explained the woman was his cousin, but it was too late. Anne stood on the balcony, realizing Jack had moved on. Their story wasn't about time, but about the connection of souls. Anne's choice wasn't betrayal, but an affirmation of her self-worth and a pursuit of true love. Her journey taught her that real love inspires growth, not just maintaining the status quo. In the river of love, we must seek someone who supports, appreciates, and helps us grow, creating a beautiful life story together.
Your VIP seat awaits. Subscribe now, and let's relive every movie moment together.